first of all, stay alive. Um, Second of all, let's have a look at some um what's the name? Someone's got an idea that they want to share. Okay, someone from the someone from the Rubik's cube, huh? Okay. He's dealing with a bunch of other someones as well by the looks of it. Okay. A perspective based on a bunch of available pieces of information on what this Jesus, Mary, Joseph stuff is about. Okay. Okay. So historically, there's no Jesus. He's never existed. So we can rule out him ever being a real person. Okay. And we can rule in definitely the Roman Empire has something to do with it. And also, the bit about the Hades part, that's not a Jewish thing. They had Sheol, which was a place of transition. So, basically, go a room on the way to the next room. So, when a person dies, they go into this room. They call it Sheol. They get their paperwork from the Soul Transit Authority, and then they go to pick one of the doors, and they go there, basically. There's one way of putting that. That sounds like what Sheol meant to the Jews, maybe. But the ancient Greeks had an idea of a underworld of punishment and trapped souls and whatever else, or something like that. And it wasn't anyway. So in Catholicism and the Bible of Constantine, it appears to have some kind of meaning. It's this individual has come with a perspective which is quite interesting. They said that they reckon that the reason Mary was 12 was important. That Joseph, the 30-year-old, Joseph, the 30-year-old, went into Mary's bedroom when she was 12, because he was betrothed to marry her. He thought he could have her in advance. The consequence was interesting. The consequences are the big deal. This one. So what's happened is Mary's parents have said that well, you put a baby in there, so you're gonna have to get married sooner rather than later to prevent Mary from getting stoned for adultery. So they've gotten hooked up, married up, and there were energetic consequences of Joseph's misbehaviour. And obviously at that point you can rule out the Archangel Gabriel even existing. That was in fact Joseph, and they have made that up to cover their asses. Okay, so the energetic consequences is that Joseph spiritually winds up in Mary, along with Mary. A bit of Mary winds up in Joseph as well, but mostly it's one way going. He's going in her. The consequence is because she's knocked up at the time. A bit of both their spirits wind up making Jesus, apparently. This in that story, it's not actually how other people are born spiritually. It's just that story, okay. And then what was the story that was being told? Jesus is in a confused state because he's got both his parents in there, and his individuality is, being ignored as well, because he knows his own individuality on top of all that. And then he wanders around and he mucks up and he, runs away from the temple, does all that stuff that people do. And then he gets to his young adulthood, and what was it that happened? Well, eventually, the bit of Joseph that was in Mary kicks Mary out completely. Okay, and the bit of Joseph that was in Jesus keeps sucking Mary out of Mary into Jesus, and so eventually Jesus becomes Mary. When he becomes Mary is around a moment he sees Mary Magdalene about to be stoned for adultery. And so Mary, who's spiritually then living in Jesus or Joshua, supports Mary Magdalene instead of the tradition of stoning the woman or expecting those men to pay a father a dowry or something like that. Okay, and he formed a little group of apostles, and they start wandering around. He does his ministry, so he's a light man at that point. He does his ministry, and then he goes around and um, he pisses off the Romans a bit. He gets crucified, and when he goes into his tomb, he goes to Hades. There he meets all the Josephs. Okay, because all the saints are mass murderers. Okay, so if you look at actual Catholic history, all the saints are mass murderers. Except for the ones that get excommunicated. And then a few hundred years later, the Vatican's decided that was a bad idea. Okay, so they're typically mass murderers who did crusades and things like that, or really dodgy, corrupt popes or something like that. That's where most of the saints were. And so Joseph, he's spiritually in Hades because he's a horrible character. He raped a 12-year-old at the start of the story, so he belongs there. In greater karmic truth. So he's there trapped with all the other Joseph-like characters, and what happens is that because physically Jesus died, the spirit of Mary then goes into Hades to rescue the saints, repeating the pattern before of what was it? Joseph doing energetic vampirism on Mary, no matter where he winds up, and as a consequence, the dark spirits of the Joseph type characters start leaving Hades, and Mary's in Hades. Okay, and because of bilocation effects, Mary's physical body is still walking around on the earth. She's not dead. A weird mathematics then occurs where the light then goes back into Mary's body, so Mary gets her light back, and then she becomes a healer, and then and then all the Josephs wind up in the body of Jesus. So then Jesus is resurrected, and he walks out and declares himself God because he's become his father. Chew on that one.